Right. Hi. How are you? You know, it's been a very long time since I spoke to you. Do you remember? The last time, you remember we spoke about the cobra in the chicken coop? I'm going to tell you a story about a duck. When I was a little boy, quite as little as you, possibly 2.5 years old or 3 years old, behind our house in the village lived a man called Nadarajah. Shall we call him Nada? Mr. Nada was about 40 years of age and he was working with the railways. What he would do would be to lift very heavy railway sleepers, which were pieces of wood, and place them, and on top of them he would place rails. And because he used to carry all these pieces of wood which were very heavy, Mr. Nada was very big and very powerful. Mr. Nada had a hobby. After work, he would come back home and he would rear ducks. And the ducks were of many different colors. Some were brown, some were snow white, some were black, some were speckled, a mixture of brown like chocolate and black and white spots. And Mr. Nada loved all his ducks. Among all his ducks, there was a white color one, and that duck was a very naughty duck. Every morning, my mother would come out and feed her chicken. She would call them and say, "Cluck, cluck, cluck, come here, have some food," and she would throw some grains. Just behind our house, Mr. Nada would also be calling his ducks, and he had more ducks than anybody else in the village. He had about 40 ducks. Imagine 40, so many. So when he was throwing them rice and grain and water, they would rush forward and they go cluck, 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 and they'd make all this noise. It was very loud. But this white duck was a naughty boy. You know what he did? He would fight with the other ducks to get to the food first that Mr. Nada was throwing. And then it would come to our house and it would threaten the chicken, chase them away, and eat the chicken feed that mother was throwing to the chicken. And one day, mother got very upset. She said, "Look at this duck. What a greedy fellow he is. Mr. Nadarajah is giving him food, he finishes it there, he fights with all the other ducks, and afterward he comes here and he disturbs our chicken and he eats up all the food of our chicken. This really is not good, is it?" And she would go like this for days and days and days. What could I do? I was a little fellow, and Mr. Nada was so big, so powerful. He had big muscles. His chest was very big, flat, big muscles, big shoulders. His stomach had all these little lines where, you know, he was like a weightlifter. Have you seen a weightlifter? He looked exactly like a weightlifter. And he had a booming voice, big, round, piercing eyes. It was quite frightening to look at. He never smiled. He didn't like children. That man, he didn't. So one day, while all this was going on, mother was feeding her chicken. This naughty white duck came in and began to disturb mother's chicken. And in a moment of frustration, you know what's frustration? You don't know what to do. You get angry. You're upset. That's frustration. My mother said, "Take that stone and throw it at this duck and throw it hard." Obediently, without thinking, I took a stone and I hurled it with all my might at this duck, and the duck jumped as I threw the stone, and the stone struck the duck under the wings. It flapped its wings and it fell down and remained silent. And then my mother said, "Oh dear, what have we done? Mr. Nada is going to punish you. He's a very strong man. Oh dear, oh dear." And my mother was going like this. "Oh goodness, oh my dear, he is going to get angry. What will I tell him? Oh dear, his duck is dead." I was so frightened. I ran into the house and hid under the bed and crept forward, and through one of the holes in the planks in the wall, I was looking at this duck. And the duck was staying still. Mother, being the very kind person she is, went to the duck, tried to pat it, and then she called out to Mr. Nada, "Mr. Nada, Mr. Nada, I am very sorry. Your white duck has been very naughty. We threw a stone at it. I am so sorry. It's now fallen down, it's not moving." And Mr. Nada came forward, walking briskly, looking very angry, and then he was looking around everywhere. He knew it was me because I was the only boy in the house. But you know what the duck did? It suddenly got up and squawked, and flapping its wings like this, ran off to join its friends and began to fight amongst all the other ducks and ate all the food, and it was quite happy. And Mr. Nada looked at me and said, and he went to me. I was so scared. That is the story of the duck. Well, I hope you enjoyed this story. And until I see you again, goodbye from Grandpa GK's TV. Good night.